Good day, everyone. This is Muiwa with you here again on Transformed podcast. Hopefully, you've been doing well since our last published video. And today, we're still going to be going along the same lines of thought and exploration as in the last two videos. We want to maybe dig in a little deeper into some of the concepts we talked about and experiences we talked about. So just to bring it down, we want to dig deeper into spirituality. And we talked about spirituality to some extent in our first video. I want to go a little bit into that because surely it's a very wide world and there will be many podcast episodes dedicated to exploring spirituality. I will do more of the talking about it than the actual practice because this is a YouTube channel. It's not it's not church. It's not a spiritual center. So we'll be doing more talking about. The last time we talked about spirituality, I tried to give you a kind of what spirituality means or what we're talking about when we use that word spirituality. And I think I would like to go at it from another angle. Let's just start with the word, just like we did for theology. We looked into the makeup of that word theology, and we checked the Greek word theos and logos, which again means logos is God, is discourse or rationality. Theos is God. So we said theology is what we have to say about God. But today we're not doing Greek words. We're just going straight from the English word spirituality. So of course the ality makes it a noun that is coined from a verb or not a verb, an adverb or an adjective, which itself comes from, spirituality is a noun. It comes from the adjective spiritual, which itself comes from the noun spirit. So I think that's a good way to start when we're talking about spirituality. In a sense, we're talking about interacting with spirits. Let's put it in that very simple way. Spirituality is about interacting with spirits. Or you can say it's about interacting with the spirit aspect of reality, the spiritual aspect of reality. And that's the angle at which I want to go into it today. So, as I said the last time, spirituality is about moving away from the mundane stuffs, the everyday mundane stuffs, into things that enrich life even much more, gives it more meaning. That's one way to see spirituality. But then I ended at before the close of that video, I mentioned that actually the mundane stuffs too can be made to have more meaning than being mundane, than just what we think it is. And maybe that's a better way to to discuss spirituality, to look into spirituality. It's about interacting with the spiritual aspects of all of reality. Because yes, the mundane stuff itself has an aspect that makes it more meaningful. Let's talk about food. You can have a meal as just meaningless activity, just mundane stuff. You can just eat your food. Many people do. Okay, from this part of the world, prison is a very bad experience. I know there are other parts of the world where prison is much more humanizing. They still treat the prisoners like humans, but there are many parts of the world where prisoners are treated like subhumans or not humans. So in many prisons, the kind of food they eat is terrible. There is no joy, there is nothing. You just eat for eating's sake and you want to get on with it. There are so many people like that. And not just people in prisons. There are many people whose lives are like that. They eat their food and it means absolutely nothing. But there are many of us who get to enjoy a meal. You eat something and it's not just nourishing maybe your flesh or stuff, your body. No, it's not just that. There is an enjoyment that goes with it. There is a psychological aspect to it. There is now, allow me to use that term, a spiritual aspect to it. Maybe we haven't got into the spiritual aspect yet, but let me stay with the psychological. It means something. you are enjoying your meal. It adds to you in ways other than physical addition. It adds to you. It enriches you in a certain way. It has an impact that goes beyond just food in your tummy or nourishment from your body. There is this awesome taste that goes with it, and even more than that, you actually enjoy your meal. You feel different when you had a good meal. And again, it's just beyond the taste. I'm sure you can imagine what I'm talking about, and that's a good way to start. We can take it a little further. Imagine you're having that meal in the context of other people. You're not just eating by yourself, you're eating with friends and loved ones, and it changes the experience. When you're eating in the midst of loved ones, it takes that eating to another level. You feel even more alive. You enjoy your meal even more. Probably you're making jokes at the table, you're sharing a conversation. Maybe if you're with your spouse, you're passing food to one another. You are locked in arms. Sharing your meal with somebody takes it to a whole nother level. It's one thing that you enjoy it by yourself and it adds to you just by the virtue of enjoying it. It's another thing when you are sharing the meal with someone you love, a loved one. It means something much more. And that even means more when, let's say, one of you had prepared it, and they had prepared it as an expression of love for you. So they are giving of themselves to you, because that's what cooking is. When someone cooks for you, if they do it from their heart, it's something of themselves they are giving to you if you don't realize it. Anyone who goes into the kitchen and isn't kind of stressed out, because cooking is very stressful, if we're going to be honest. Cooking is very stressful. But if someone goes into the kitchen and with joy creates a dish for you, they do that because they love you. They want to bless you in a way. So it's something of themselves they are giving to you through that cooking. And that's why children can be very elated when they enjoy maybe a mother's meal or a father's meal, when their parents cook for them and they get to enjoy the meal. The kind of appreciation that comes from kids, the smile that shows up on their face, it's very different. It's very, very different. But usually when we grow up, we lose that sense of appreciating stuff like that. So every aspect of life can be very meaningful, and you shouldn't just I am trying to correct a notion that I might have passed across from the last video, to say maybe there are stuff that are mundane and don't have any meaning. Like I said at the end of that video, I tried to dismiss that, but I didn't want the video to get too long. That was why we cut it short, and I'm addressing it in this video. Every aspect of life can have more meaning. There is a spiritual aspect, and maybe this example I gave also corrects your notion of spirituality. If you're imagining ghosts, if you're imagining shapeless wing-like creatures behind every physical thing, that's not the kind of spirit I'm talking about. That's not the kind of spiritual I'm talking about. I'm talking about web of relationships, both seen and unseen, that make life meaningful. I'll repeat that again. I'm not talking about ghosts. I'm not talking about shapeless Jasper-like creatures. If you know that movie with that character Jasper, I'm not talking about that kind of imagination. I'm talking about the web of relationships and networks that make life have its meaning. And yes, that's what make life have its meaning. This phone becomes meaningless unless it is in connection with something else. It can only mean something to me. It means nothing to itself, but it means something to me. So by virtue of its relationship with me, it means something. And you can talk about every other thing in that same word. There are things and there are relationships. The things become meaningless without the relationship. They dissolve into the nameless, faceless, innumerable things that exist in the world. But when you begin to consider the relationships that they are a part of, the network, the wider network of creatures that they are a part of, then the meanings begin to emerge. And that's the spiritual part. It's unseen because you cannot measure relationships in a test tube. You know, you can't do physical experiments to measure relationship. They belong to the unseen world, and that's the usual world that is being referenced by the term spirit. Do they have shape? Do they have spiritual bodies? There are stuff we could talk about in maybe later in the future to address such questions. But today, to give you a good view of what we talk about by spirituality and spiritual and spirit, we're talking about that larger network of relationships that every creature belongs in, that gives it its meaning and makes life more meaningful. To bring it down again so you can actually get it, for you, for me, the things that make our lives more rich and more meaningful are the relationships we're a part of. And the reason why we pursue spirituality is because we are seeking things even deeper than some of the relationships we already have. And maybe I'll address that before I end this video. Let me address that now. Because we are seeking something deeper, many of us are in the danger of taking the relationships we do have for granted. We do that a lot. Maybe because you want to connect with God, it's very easy to dismiss the connections you have with other humans, to downgrade it, to downplay it. But those are very important. So having said that, do not downplay the connections and the relationships you have with other humans, other creatures per se, like your pets. As I mentioned in the last video, everything in the world. While you don't downplay that, we do certainly want more. We want more. And that's why we are often reaching out for interaction, for communication, for connection, for relationship with something even bigger than we are. And so that gives you a good picture of what I mean by spirituality being the networks of interaction, communication, relationship that gives life its real meaning. Because things by themselves don't have any meaning. They are just things. It's when they belong to a network of relationships that they then gain meaning. And maybe that's another word we could use to explain spirituality. We are seeking, when we seek to be spiritual, we are seeking a sense of belonging. You want to belong to something greater. And people who have misunderstood those impulses, sometimes they've sought to connect in dangerous ways with their ancestors. They want to belong to a relationship just beyond the now, just beyond the now and the present, what we see. They want to belong, they want to connect with their ancestors' past. Maybe they want to connect with something in the future. They want to connect with the larger creation, you know. They want to connect with things beyond what we often encounter in our everyday lives. And yes, they want to connect with God. There are many of us that we seek those things out, and it's all right. But you can explore some of those in terrible ways. I know I raised some questions by some of the examples I just mentioned, but again, we will not address all of it today. But I want us to think of spirituality from that angle. Think about spirituality, think about spiritual, think about spirit, think about the spiritual aspect of all reality. Think about it, and that being the network of connections, of relationships that binds all of us together, all of us, you and me, every part of the world, and ultimately that binds us with God, the one who is behind everything. Because everything becomes useless when God is out of the picture. Everything, every connection is meaningless except to the one who ultimately got it rolling, got the ball rolling, if I may borrow that metaphor. Everything becomes meaningless except it means something to the one who ultimately looks over it all, who ultimately cares for it all, who ultimately sustains it all. Everything becomes meaningless. And so whatever forms of spirituality that you pursue, if it's not grounded in God, in worship of God, ultimately you are damning your soul. It ultimately becomes meaningless. That meaning you're seeking, that greater sense of belonging you're seeking, unless it connects with God, unless it is grounded in God, unless it is rooted in God, ultimately you are in some form of idolatry, and it's going to become meaninless, and it ultimately leads to death. But I wouldn't go beyond that today. I hope that blessed you. If you have any questions, be sure to provide them in the comment section. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.